Season's greetings, Helldivers. Ervin here, and today we're breaking down the new STAX-3 Wasp Launcher in Helldivers 2. This faithful recreation and Killzone collab stratagem is now free to all Helldivers as a Festival of Reckoning gift deployed on Christmas Day. Now that I've had some time to fire this new launcher against all three of the enemy factions, I decided it was time to bring you a full breakdown as to just how good this new weapon is. There's a lot to cover as this is the first breakdown with the Illuminates included, so let's just get started. Firstly, the Wasp is a lock on based swarm missile launcher functioning in a similar fashion to the Spear launcher, requiring a lock on to fire at all. Following a lock on, the missiles are deployed in random directions before the lock on takes effect, and the missile sails towards their intended target at a range of up to 120 meters. This has some notable downsides. Although having your support weapon basically aim itself is great and all, what's not so great is how these missiles fly into nearby buildings and surfaces to your left and right, requiring wide open spaces to be reliable. And on the topic of reliability, the minimum range for these missiles to actually hit their locked target is roughly 20 to 30 meters. Any targets closer than that are very likely to be missed entirely, meaning we need to maintain our distance when utilizing this launcher. Notably, small targets that are moving quickly are also very difficult for the missiles to track. You'll actually miss entirely if they're moving too quickly, such as the Overseers sprinting or hitting their jetpack boosters while they're locked on. And the final downside of target locking is also, of course, the fact that you can't actually aim for weak points on larger targets. In most cases, what you get is what you get, and while you can somewhat influence where the missiles land based on your initial firing position, such as being able to hit slightly closer targets while laying down, this weapon gives up any idea of precision in exchange for ease of use and volume of fire. And for most situations, that's relatively okay, as the launcher fires swarms of 7 missiles per reload with 5 spare canisters, totaling at 42 missiles before you need a resupply. Meaning we have a lot of Christmas cheer and volume of fire to work with. It also has another firing mode, able to fire the entire canister at once as an airburst, but this is almost always a very poor use of ordnance due to this airburst only firing the explosive damage of the missile, losing out on the ballistic component entirely. That damage being 200 ballistic damage with an armor penetration level of 6, also known as anti tank, per missile, in addition to causing an explosion with a 2.5-meter inner radius, dealing 600 damage, blooming up to 5 meters in radius, dealing reduced damage the further from the center down to 0, with the 600 explosive damage only sporting an armor penetration level of 3, also known as medium penetration. So the explosive damage of this ordnance is fantastic. For context, the grenade launcher's 10 grenades per mag only dish out 4,000 total damage at AP3, while the Wasp is not only packing 1,400 anti tank ballistic damage worth of hates with its 7 missiles, but 4,200 AP3 explosive damage as well. To be fair, at the cost of a backpack. So when it comes to killing off medium-sized enemies and packs of smaller threats, the Wasp does a really good job at culling the hordes and enemy medium targets. What it's not so great at is utilizing that anti-tank damage, as even one commando rocket is bunker busting 1100 AP6 ballistic damage compared to the Wasp's entire canister only putting out that 1400. But with all that explosive damage, it's surely making up for that in excess, right? Well, no. Many hard targets in Helldivers 2 are completely immune to explosive damage or have main health pools guarded with greater than level 3 armor, nullifying the explosive damage entirely, more than evening the playing field compared to other launchers. This overall leaves us with a launcher that's got more in common with the autocannon's usability than the spear, functioning as a better medium and chaff killing launcher, with its ability to handle anti tank duties, but not as well as dedicated anti tank weapons. So while this weapon can take down the bigger threats, it'll never do so with the same efficiency as dedicated anti tank and will run your ammo supply low in a hurry if you use it for it. When reloading the Wasp, it's a stationary reload taking a pretty lengthy 4.3 seconds. But there is some very useful tech for this as it is a two-stage reload, meaning not only can we eject the canister then finish the reload later, but we can also animation cancel parts of the animation to speed this up to a full reload taking less than a couple seconds. You do this by crouching or opening your stratagem menu right as you see the canister physically eject from the Wasp. After which, resume the reload, and you'll have skipped the majority of the animation, quickly loading a new canister to get you combat ready once again. This tech is a bit unreliable though. Sometimes the Wasp just bugs out and does not eject the canister, meaning you have to just do the full reload cycle. So keep your eyes open for when that canister ejects and take advantage of the times it does, in fact, eject properly. So that's how it operates, but what is this thing particularly good for? How's it stack up against our enemies? Well, against the Terminids, it's definitely less than my favorite support weapon. A backpack slot is pretty expensive against any faction with how juiced up our jump packs are now, and giving up potential defenses for a launcher means I need something that's gonna make that worth my while against the bugs. Sadly, I can't say the Wasp is particularly great at doing that against this faction. You can get quite a few kills firing it into swarms of warriors, as it'll lock anything bigger than a hunter, but its one-shotting capability ends right after the Hive Guard, sometimes taking up to 2 missiles to take down Alpha Commanders. The Anti-Chaff and Alpha Commanders also being the highlight, as when it comes to the Bile Titans and Chargers, you get extremely inconsistent or sometimes outright bad results depending on where the swarm lands on the target. For context, the Bile Titan's head has 1500 health and doesn't take any damage from the 600 explosive per missile, meaning even if you could somehow get the full swarm of 7 missiles to land headshots, the big fellow still wouldn't go down with 100 health remaining, making it a minimum 2 canister job. Against the Chargers, a full swarm will take them down through the head, assuming it's not a behemoth charger, or if you can get just a couple missiles to land in the butt region. But again, the majority of the time, it's going to require 2 canisters, or sometimes even more to put them down. And that's even with stationary chargers. Against chargers actively running you down, getting within your minimum firing distance, the weapon really falls apart as a charger answer. For the Impalers, it'll work fine enough as their faces can actually take that 600 explosive damage, meaning it's a good way to put them down at range. However, it's hard to ignore this is something stratagems and even most primary weapons can also neutralize relatively easily. For most of my time with the Wasp against the Terminids, I was often thinking that this new launcher was fun to use, but I'd have been better off bringing, say, a Quasar cannon or a coilless launcher while just using my primary to handle medium and smaller threats, or taking the autocannon for an overall better performing hybrid option against them. Against the automatons, my feelings for the Wasp were very different. The Wasp can one shot Devastators, two shot the Rocket Striders, and even two shot the gunships. And as these threats are all start well outside our minimum firing distance and don't move particularly quickly, it serves as a great answer to all three of these. Notably, it also decimates tanks and cannon turrets due to the explosives hitting the back of the tanks and turrets where the AP3 weak point is, so it's great for them as well. The only notable challenges for the Wasp are the factory striders, which can absolutely tank its canisters to the face, although you can neutralize its long range threat by destroying the cannon. And the fact is, it's pretty bad at destroying fabricators due to them taking none of that 600 explosive damage, only the 200 anti tank damage. And as the fabricators have 1500 health, this basically means you always need to reload in between destroying them, making it a less than ideal answer. Best to use alternative methods like strafing run or grenade pistol shots to the vent to deal with them instead. Overall, the Wasp against the automatons is a great pick for any Helldiver, especially when deploying to gunship patrol modifier operations, as it cleans up swarms of these things extremely nicely. For the Squids, there really isn't much to say yet, as the majority of their roster has yet to join the Vanguard in combating us. But against the Harvester, the Wasp is, in my opinion, not great. You'll want to drop the shield first with your primary, but then it's going to take on average 2 canisters worth of missiles to bring it down, compared to just 4 joint shots with the AMR, which wouldn't have cost you a backpack slot. This is because the majority of the Harvester's body is completely immune to explosive damage, and that 200 projectile damage is pretty unimpressive at getting through those 1000 health armored plates on the back. You're basically just hoping enough missiles land in the leg joints to bring it down quickly. Against the Overseers, though, the Wasp is pretty solid as it does take them down in just 1 missile with a relative degree of reliability. Only problem is, sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, the Overseers get moving a bit too quick for the missiles to track, causing them to miss. The Overseers can also close distance with us pretty quickly, making it difficult to deploy the Wasp due to them being too close for our missiles to land. And because the Illuminates are fighting us in the city streets, at least at the moment, there are lots of buildings to your left and right at any given time that'll eat up your missiles, meant for the enemy for additional hijinks. Overall, I rate the Wasp a meh out of 10 for the Terminids, a W out of 10 for the Automatons, and a
Unreliable, ladies and gents.
out of 10 for the Squids. Thank you to my coffee supporters who help keep the channel going, and thank you for watching till the end. I'll see you next time. Hello there, Mr. Factory Strider, sir.
What the? That's important.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, the god! Ah!
Oh, well, that's
That
That was 100 to 0.
didn't even turn, just the gun looked at me.